Have you ever completely exhausted your own soul, desperately altering your personality, sacrificing your deepest dreams, and heavily compromising your firm boundaries just to extract a tiny, pathetic drop of cheap validation from people who do not even actually care about you? We are falsely conditioned to believe that blending in and constantly making everyone around us perfectly comfortable is the ultimate path to being loved. But the terrifying, dark psychological reality is that the endless pursuit of public approval is a highly toxic disease that will actively destroy your entire identity. Before we dive into today's life-changing lesson on the incredibly dangerous, completely devastating psychological price of needing everyone's approval, please take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing you these powerful stories. In the highly critical, deeply judgmental center of an ancient, wealthy arts district, there lived a brilliantly talented but incredibly insecure young sculptor named Dorian, who possessed a single, massive, flawlessly pure block of the rarest white marble in the entire kingdom. Dorian held an undeniably magnificent, highly unique vision in his brilliant mind, completely dedicating his days to aggressively carving a towering, terrifyingly beautiful warrior that perfectly represented his own raw, authentic, and powerful inner spirit. But Dorian was deeply paralyzed by a highly toxic, completely desperate need to be universally praised by absolutely everyone in the city, secretly terrified that his bold, highly original artwork would be heavily criticized by the arrogant, small-minded public. Just as the breathtaking, incredibly detailed warrior began to take its magnificent shape, a wealthy, deeply arrogant nobleman walked past the open studio, loudly complaining that the statue's fiercely raised sword was entirely too aggressive and made him feel deeply uncomfortable. Instantly triggered by the severe panic of entirely losing the nobleman's cheap, pathetic approval, Dorian desperately grabbed his heavy iron chisel and completely destroyed the magnificent sword, frantically replacing it with a weak, highly submissive, completely unthreatening walking stick. The very next morning, a group of highly judgmental, loudly gossiping merchants completely stopped outside his dusty window, violently criticizing the statue's towering, highly intimidating height, claiming that true art should never make the common people feel so incredibly small. Frantically desperate to instantly please the incredibly loud, highly critical crowd, Dorian violently cut the strong, muscular legs out from under his own masterpiece, heavily reducing the powerful warrior to a completely pathetic, kneeling figure that heavily bowed to the dusty floor. For weeks, every single time a random stranger offered a deeply uneducated, highly toxic criticism about the statue's fierce eyes, strong jaw, or broad shoulders, Dorian would immediately panic and aggressively chisel away another massive piece of his original beautiful vision. He desperately smoothed out every single sharp, intimidating edge, completely destroying the unique, brilliant characteristics of the marble until he had created something so incredibly bland, perfectly safe, and heavily watered down that it could not possibly offend a single human being. But when the highly anticipated day of the grand artistic reveal finally arrived, Dorian proudly pulled the heavy canvas sheet off his heavily altered work, fully expecting the massive, gathered crowd to violently erupt into highly enthusiastic, completely validating applause. Instead, a completely suffocating, deeply humiliating silence heavily blanketed the entire room, as the exact same arrogant people who had actively demanded all the cowardly changes looked at the tiny, completely unrecognizable, shapeless lump of stone with absolute, undeniable disgust. Without offering a single pathetic word of the validation Dorian so desperately craved, the deeply ungrateful crowd loudly mocked his complete lack of actual talent and aggressively walked out of the studio, entirely abandoning him in the dark with the ruined, worthless rubble of his own destroyed potential. From the dark, smoky shadows of the empty room, an ancient, highly feared master sculptor who had silently watched the entire tragic, pathetic transformation slowly stepped forward, looking at Dorian with deeply piercing, heavily disappointed eyes. "You desperately handed a highly destructive heavy iron chisel to every single passing fool who walked down the street, and now you're violently crying because they completely destroyed your priceless, undeniable masterpiece," the old master growled with a terrifying heavy voice. The master brutally explained that when you actively try to frantically mold yourself into the exact perfect shape to deeply please every single insecure person in the room, you violently chip away your own authentic soul until there is absolutely nothing left but a pathetic, invisible pile of completely worthless dust. Dorian fell to his muddy knees, completely shattered by the massive, incredibly painful psychological realization that in his desperate, frantic quest to be deeply loved by absolutely everyone, he had entirely destroyed the only magnificent thing that actually made him incredibly special. This dark, incredibly aggressive psychological story holds an absolutely urgent, deeply life-altering truth for anyone who is currently trapped in the highly toxic, completely exhausting cycle of deeply compromising their own massive identity just to keep deeply manipulative, highly miserable people entirely comfortable. You must fundamentally understand that the arrogant, highly critical crowd does not actually know what they truly want, and deeply insecure people will always aggressively demand that you severely shrink your massive, glowing potential so they do not have to confront their own pathetic mediocrity. When you constantly deeply alter your own completely valid opinions, fiercely hide your true, beautiful personality, and desperately water down your massive ambitions just to fit into their deeply flawed, highly restrictive boxes, you are actively committing psychological suicide. A deeply terrifying, dark psychological reality is that the more you frantically try to appease the incredibly toxic demands of the crowd, the more they will actively despise you for your complete, pathetic lack of an undeniable, solid, internal spine. Human beings are biologically hardwired to deeply respect highly authentic, entirely unbothered individuals who possess the cold, terrifying courage to boldly stand entirely alone in their own undeniable truth, completely regardless of the heavy, toxic public backlash. True, undeniable power is completely recognizing that you are the absolute, ultimate master sculptor of your own incredible existence, and absolutely refusing to ever hand your incredibly expensive heavy iron chisel over to people who have completely failed to build their own successful lives. Stop desperately begging for a highly conditional, completely fake seat at a highly toxic table filled with deeply arrogant people who only actually love the heavily compromised, deeply submissive, entirely fake version of you. The exact moment you boldly decide to completely stop desperately seeking the cheap, meaningless approval of highly flawed people is the exact moment you violently reclaim the massive, undeniable steering wheel of your own incredible, highly unstoppable destiny. You must eagerly learn to completely fall in love with the highly intimidating, absolutely liberating power of being entirely misunderstood by the exact people who lack the fundamental, basic vision to actually see your massive, undeniable greatness. Let them violently complain about your highly aggressive boundaries. Let them loudly gossip about your intense, unapologetic confidence. And let them desperately create entirely fake narratives to rapidly soothe their own massive, unhealed, deep internal trauma. While they are entirely obsessed with angrily trying to forcefully dictate exactly how you should live your life, you will be deeply focused on aggressively carving your own massive, undeniably brilliant, highly untouchable masterpiece in the completely silent dark. Take a massive, incredibly deep breath today. Forcefully rip the heavy chisel out of the dirty hands of the deeply ungrateful public. Completely drop the heavy, exhausting burden of the desperate people pleaser, and actively step into the highly intimidating, deeply authentic power of your own raw truth. Master the terrifying, completely invincible art of total emotional detachment from external validation. Strictly refuse to negotiate your immense, unique worth with deeply blind people, and aggressively protect the sharp, beautiful edges of your own brilliant personality. Do not ever desperately water down your incredibly powerful, highly potent medicine just because a few incredibly weak, deeply arrogant people are completely unable to comfortably swallow it. Your incredibly unapologetic, deeply authentic existence is your absolute greatest, most heavily guarded psychological weapon. Aggressively keep it highly original. Violently keep it completely uncompromising, and absolutely never be afraid to fiercely use it to protect your own massive peace. When you finally completely stop caring if the deeply toxic crowd wildly applauds for you, you violently open the heavy doors to a massive, beautifully bright future filled with the absolute, highly elevated respect of the few people who actually matter. Reclaim your absolute power today. Completely ignore their desperate, pathetic screams for you to instantly conform, and confidently carve the massively successful, deeply peaceful reality that perfectly aligns with your own undeniable soul. Stay completely cold to their cheap, toxic manipulation. Stay incredibly focused on your own massive growth. And let your absolute, terrifying authenticity be the loudest, most devastating statement you ever actually make. You were absolutely not put on this highly competitive, deeply chaotic earth to be universally liked by deeply miserable people. You were placed here to aggressively build a massive, absolutely undeniable legacy that completely shatters their fragile, incredibly weak illusions. Stop freely giving away highly expensive, incredibly vital pieces of your own beautiful heart, just to temporarily satisfy the endless, highly toxic hunger of people who will never actually be full. Stand incredibly firm in your own massive power. Fiercely defend your own brilliant vision, and absolutely never apologize for refusing to actively destroy yourself just to perfectly fit into their deeply flawed, heavily broken world. Embrace the glorious, highly intimidating isolation of the true, undeniable master, entirely detached from the cheap applause of the massive crowd, and watch the entire world aggressively bend to respect your unshakable spine. If you found true value in this dark, psychological lesson and learned something incredibly important about the true, devastating price of seeking approval today, Please hit that like button, leave a comment below about your own journey, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful life lessons.